Dear students, how are you all? Hope all of you are doing really well. And I am Banik, your English teacher from Binapani Higher Secondary School. And today we will be doing a poem of Standard 10. What's our poem? We will know it. But first, let's talk about two things. Fire and ice. You see, both of them are just contrast to each other, right? Two extreme poles. Isn't it? Both have the power of destroying each other. If there's fire, there can't be ice, and if there's ice, there can't be fire. So you see, these two, fire and ice, are totally poles apart. Right? Likewise, in our lives also, we have extreme emotions. For example, passion for something, desire for something, that we can go to any extent to grab that thing, to make that thing ours. Right. On the other hand, we feel so much dislike for something or hatred for something that it eventually either it ruins our own peace of mind or it ruins that person or thing. So nothing extreme in life, my dear students, is good for your health as well as for your life. In a way, if we cannot control our emotions and if we let the emotions control us, then eventually it will lead to our self-destruction. And ultimately, in this way, this may lead to the destruction of the world as well. Right? Okay. And this is what our poem or our poet tries to explain today. So what's our poem today? It's Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. We will analyze our poem, but before that, let's talk about Robert Frost. He was born on 26 March 1874 in San Francisco, California in the United States. He had received the Pulitzer Prize, which is actually a great honor, and he had received the prize for 4 times. So you might very well understand what a great poet he was. And you see, he used to write about things that we all can relate to or connect to, very ordinary things, right? Like fire and ice. We all know the terms, right? What is fire and what is ice, and how dangerous they might be, right? And in this poem also, Fire and Ice, our poet has tried to give a literal meaning to the poem, that is fire and ice as they stand for, and also a metaphorical or symbolic meaning, like what fire stands for here and what ice stands for. I want to tell you what led to the creation of this poetry. You see, this poetry was published in December 1920 in Harper's Magazine. Alright, now what happened? Long before this poetry was written, Frost had told an anecdote to someone that he had met an astronomer. And the name of the astronomer is Hallo Shapley. Okay, and because he was an astronomer, Shapley, Frost asked him that, can you tell me what will end to the end of the world? To which Shapley had replied that either the sun will burst out or the sun will start burning so high that it will incinerate the earth, or it will burn the earth, or the earth will eventually freeze up in the space. So in a way, he wanted to say that either fire or ice will eventually lead to the destruction of the earth. This theme later was used by our poet Robert Frost to create this poem. So you see how science has been instrumental in the creation of a work of art, and work of art actually, what it's doing is that it is explaining what science tried to say. It's clarifying the meaning of science. So my students, here in this poem, our poet wants to say that eventually or unfortunately the world will end someday. Okay, and there's nothing that we can do about it. And as many people, so many ideas I should say. Some say that the world will burn to death, and some say that the earth will freeze to death. That is either fire or ice, that is either temperature or coldness, eventually will lead to the destruction of earth. That the earth's temperature will increase someday so much that there will be fire everywhere, or the earth will turn so cold that it will be impossible for life to sustain on earth. So let's see what he actually wants to say. At first, let's read our poem. Alright? Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Alright, so now let's analyze what he wants to say through these lines. So in the first stanza, our poet says that some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. The poet is saying that there are many opinions regarding the destruction of earth. Some say that fire will eventually lead to the destruction of earth, and some say that it's ice. So in a way, either the temperature will rise up that the earth will burn, or the temperature will go so down that the earth will come to freeze and eventually life will cease to exist. Okay. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Now he uses a term called desire. So until now we were talking about fire and ice, right? The elemental forces of nature. So from where did desire come? So now students, it's time to go into the symbolical meaning of this poem. In the literal meaning, it might be temperature and the hot temperature and the cold temperature, right? By fire and ice. But when he says desire, then we start to understand that no, he's not only talking about temperature, he's talking about something else also. So here basically he is comparing fire to desire. As I had told you in the beginning that extreme emotions, my dear students, he says if there's fire in the people, that is extreme desire or passion to achieve something, it may eventually lead to the ruin of the earth. How? For example, let's take the examples of world wars. You see why those wars happened? Because few countries wanted, they had extreme desire for power, for control over other nations, right? And hence the wars happened. For example, Hitler, his passion for power, for controlling others, it knew no bounds, so much so that so many wars were there and then so many people lost their lives. So wars are not at all desirable, and wars are nothing but an exhibition of power, passion, desire. Desire for what? Desire for controlling others. So people have so many desires in them that they care for no one. So our poet says that fiery desires of people, or the fire not as a literal fire that burns, but fire that burns inside humans. It has no limit to it. There's no end to the desires of people. For example, my students, let's talk about the speed of internet. Earlier we used to do internet with a 2G speed only, and then came 3G, now it's 4G, and now there's a hope that 5G is also going to come. So you see these waves that come out due to such high speed of internet, they are eventually ruining the temperature of the earth, it's ruining the climate, it's affecting the climate, it's affecting the sustenance of birds. Birds are dying due to those waves of internet. Alright, but we see we are not stopping, we still want 5G. We do deforestation. Why? Because the population is increasing and the demands of people are also increasing side by side. So we need more homes, more offices, more money, and due to that we are doing deforestation. We are cutting down trees, right? So the poet says that the world someday will be ruined by the desires of people, the extreme desire, extreme greed for achieving something that is ultimately having a negative impact on the sustenance of life on earth. Alright, so what he says in the second stanza: but if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate. What he says, the word perish has been used. What perish means? It means to die, that is to vanish or to do away with. Okay, so he says that if the earth had a chance to perish twice, that means once it was destroyed by fire or desire, right? And now let's suppose that earth again started to survive, but again earth may perish. Why? Now what will be responsible for it? He says hatred. Earlier he said desire, right? And now he says hatred is also a reason that the earth may perish someday. Next what he says, to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Suffice means sufficient. Suffice means sufficient, that is enough. He says if there's no desire, let's just think for a moment, fire is done, desire is no more, earth had vanished, earth again has been recreated. But now if hatred is there, then the earth will die, because hatred is sufficient for the earth to perish. And then he uses the term ice. And then we understand that he is not actually talking about the cold temperature only. He is actually describing ice to hatred. Right? Like we say we use a word like cold-blooded murder or something. Like as cold as ice. It means hatred that swells up inside one's mind. He talks about insensitivity that we show towards other people. For example, here also wars are very much relevant. If passion for controlling other nations can lead to war, hatred can also lead to wars. Right? I want to conquer that country. That means in a way I have hatred for those countries. Because you see people, when you hate someone, when you hate something, the emotion is so strong in you that your peace of mind is ultimately gone. Right? You don't feel good about it. This hatred, it eats you from inside. It wrings you from inside. So ultimately the poet wants to say that the world will eventually perish, first due to desire of people, and then again it will be destroyed by hatred of people. Students, there was a person called John N. Sirio who said that Dante's Inferno has much resemblance in this poem. What is Dante's Inferno? Dante was a writer and Inferno is one of its texts. In Dante's Inferno, Inferno here stands for hell. Okay, and Dante wrote in his text that the sinners who had sinned umpteen times in the earth, when they die, they go to hell, right? And in the hell, they rot in the fire of hell, but at the same time, they are submerged in a lake of ice till their neck. So only their heads are above the ice and their entire body is submerged in ice. And again there's fire all around. So you see fire and ice exist side by side in Dante's hell, right? This is from where Frost has also, maybe he has drawn his inspiration. That is, he wants to say fire and ice both can make the world hell to live in. That is, desire and hatred both can make the earth not a good place to live in. So why this poem has been included in your syllabus? What do you think? Because my students, you guys or you people will be the future policy makers for this earth, isn't it? If you understand these concepts of fire and ice and desire and hatred, my dear students, you will be the future policy makers for this world. And when you make those policies for the earth, you will keep in mind all these things. That extreme desire is not good, extreme power is not good, extreme hatred is not good. And this way you will make the earth fit for sustainable development. That's why you are reading this poem. And also, it's an example of a classic poetry. Now, what's a classic poetry, my dear students? Like you see, Frost had written it in the 1920s or like that. And now it's 2020. So, 100 years have passed. But you see, the thoughts are still the same. The threats are still the same. The threat that the earth will vanish someday is still there. So these thoughts are relevant not only in those times, but it's relevant in today's time as well. This is an example of a classic poetry, that is timeless poetry. So what can we conclude? The conclusion is that the poet says that some say, when he says the word some say, that he doesn't give a direct reference to the scientist or something like that. He says that people, as many people, there are different ideas. Some say that fire or desire will ruin the earth, and some say ice or hatred will ruin the earth. And here desire and hatred both has a connection to wars also, right? And fire has a relation to global warming, and ice has also a relation to the climatic change, that the earth may start to freeze because of extreme weather conditions, or may lead to the catastrophic end of the earth. This is what our poets wants to say. So now let's look into a quick summary of our poem. Robert Frost's poem Fire and Ice is a strong symbolic poem where fire is used as the emotion of desire and ice as the emotion of hatred. He has used the idea of two groups who have their own possible explanations for the end of the world. One is of the opinion that fire alone can destroy each and every possibility of life on earth, while the other thinks that if ice, as a result of extreme low temperatures, could cover the Earth's surface, it would lead to the end of the world. Both the components are compared with self destructing human emotions, desire and hatred, and he considers it capable of bringing human beings on the verge of destruction. Thus, he considers fire as more competent for destruction as desire for wars. But then again, he thinks that icy hatred is just as capable of ruining humans, though slowly and steadily. Therefore, if Earth was to end twice, ice would be just as good as fire, because ice here represents hatred. Hatred as can be represented through wars again. Therefore, if Earth was to end twice, ice and fire both would be as good to destroy it. If fire would lead to rapid destruction, ice would lead to silent damage. Thus, the poem very artistically underpins the philosophy that we let our emotions rule us, and if we don't control them, they will surely bring us all on the verge of chaos. So now let's discuss a theme that is relevant here. Is the theme of hatred, desire and the end of the world. How hatred and desire can lead to the end of the world. So here you see that the poet is hinting at two emotions, right? That is desire and hatred, and he says that these emotions can lead to self-destruction, right? Your extreme emotions can destroy yourself first and then the world as well. There are two possible causes of the destruction of earth, that is fire and ice. And here fire and ice are the two elements, natural elements. They are symbolic of the desire and hatred of people, and he says that if these emotions they go unchecked, then they can ruin the world. This poem was written shortly just after World War I. So the effects of World War I were very much relevant while writing this poetry, right, in the mind of the poet. He says that fire and ice. Fire can be here representative of asteroids or global warming or the sun's disappearance, and most importantly wars, right? Desire for wars, desire for conquering nations. So he also talks about the future. Ice says that temperature will have such a glitch that the earth will start to freeze, that life will stop to exist. And there also he may talk about, he's talking about wars. So war, in both cases, war describes hatred as well as passion. Then he talks about that these two things, that is fire and ice and hatred and desire, both of them are potential tools for the catastrophic end of the earth. And what is then good for the earth? What will help the earth to continue? What will help the life on earth to continue? My dear students, is nothing but humanity. Humanity can help the earth to rejuvenate. It can help the earth not to perish. Life will go on and on, not only for us but also for our future generations. Now let's talk about the literary devices. First, let's talk about the rhyme scheme. In the rhyme scheme, we find that it's ABA, ABC, BCB. So it's varied rhyme scheme, right? For example, if you look into the words fire, desire, fire, like fire, desire, fire, that stands for A. And then we have ice, twice, then suffice. This stands for B. And then we have great and hate. So this rhyme scheme refers to the C pattern. Okay, so we have three patterns there, A, B and C, and the combination is ABA, ABC, BCB. Okay, next comes anaphora. Anaphora means when words are repeated in consecutive lines. For example, in the first two lines you may see that the combination of words, some say, has been repeated in the first two lines. So this is an example of anaphora. Then there's enjambment. What is enjambment? Enjambment means when lines continue, that one particular line continues throughout several lines without any punctuation marks. For example, if you look into the last three lines, there's no punctuation mark. That is to say that for destruction, eyes is also great and would suffice. Last, there is a full stop. In between, there's no punctuation mark. So this is an example of an enjambment. And then let's talk about symbolism. Fire, as I've already told you, is symbolic of desire, and ice is symbolic of hatred. That's all about the poetic devices or the literary devices. Now let's discuss some questions. So let's start discussing our questions from your textbook. There are many ideas about how the world will end. Do you think the world will end someday? Have you ever thought what would happen if the sun got so hot that it burst or grew colder and colder? So the answer might be like, my dear students, yes, I think that the world might end someday, but we are not sure about it. And no one can say when that day will come. But yes, there are some beliefs or views about that. That, like, if the sun gets hot, it will burn everything, or if the earth grows colder, everything shall die. That is, life on earth shall cease to exist. So in a way, the poet wants to say that either the earth will burn to death or it will freeze to death. Next question, for Frost, what do fire and ice stand for? Here are some ideas. So you see, there are some words given and you have to divide them under fire and ice. So under fire, you can say greed, conflict, avarice, fury, intolerance, lust, rigidity and hatred. And under ice, you can write insensitivity, coldness, cruelty and indifference. Right? And the third question, what is the rhyme scheme of this poem? How does it help in bringing out the contrasting ideas in the poem? So here you will say that the rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B, C, B, C, B. And we will say that the rhyme scheme helps in bringing out the contrasting ideas by separating them, that is separating the lines or the ideas. Different ideas symbolize fire and ice, and they are given different rhyme scheme in both the stanzas. So the poet wants to tell us that these two are contrasting ideas, so the rhyme scheme is also different, and this rhyme scheme in a way becomes instrumental in a better description of the poetry. That's all. So my dear students, our poet is trying to give us a warning. Warning for what? That control your emotions right now, control the extreme passion, desire, and also control your hatred towards something. These extreme emotions can ruin you, right? You are at a very tender age now, but mature at the same time. So check your emotions right now so that they don't ruin your future, right? Tomorrow you may become a great spokesperson, you may become a great scientist and whatnot. Possibilities are ample for you, right? So just concentrate on your studies, eat well, sleep well, and do meditation, and in this way your thinking will very much positive. That will help you to live a positive life, and in a way you will be helping others to live a positive life, and life on earth will go on forever. Thank you. Meet you soon with another topic. Till then, bye.